Hello everyone, this is a community lap analysis, this time for our subscriber Sam with Super Formula at Red Bull Ring. I've already watched the lap, it was quite solid, but there are some things that Sam can improve, both related with car control and with the track itself, with Red Bull Ring. So turn 1, very important corner, it's a make or break in the lap because it's a huge straight ahead. So the positioning is key. The positioning here is not bad. We're using all the track. We could have used just a bit more, but it's quite tricky to avoid the off track. So I would say the positioning here is fine. Let me show you the whole corner. So we see the inputs, picking 100, trailing a lot, and then a lot of corrections with the throttle on exit. This is the issue in this corner. This corner is quite good, but you can improve it like half a tenth or 1/10 more to gain on this exit just by putting the power down a bit earlier. So what's happening here, because we're braking quite late, we are a bit understeering on entry. We're not quite understeering, but we're not oversteering, let's put it this way. We want the car to oversteer a bit more on the entry so that the car will rotate a bit more on entry. So it's like you want on purpose to induce a bit of oversteer into this corner so that you will see that the car will quickly go a bit more to the right when you're using the steering and the brake release, and then you can put the power down more on the exit. And you can do it by braking just a bit earlier. Just a bit earlier under braking, keep the same brake release and the car will rotate more here. You'll be able to gain that time back plus more by not having this correction under throttle. But all in all, quite a good corner. Now going into the next one, the uphill braking zone. Here we're not using all the track. So we're braking, at this point we're braking, but we have this part of the track that we can use. So the antenna should be very close to the drain here, to this green part where the red and white ends. So that's the first thing, that will make this corner a lot easier. Picking 100% here is perfectly fine with this car. Now let's see again the exit. And we have a big gap here. Big gap in between the brake and the throttle. It's a bit difficult to see it because of the player, but let's play it again. So if you see here on that part, a big gap in between the brake and the throttle. So what we need to do here in order to avoid having this gap in between the inputs, because we feel the need to wait with the throttle, and this is a difficult corner. It's quite difficult to have zero gap here, to be honest, but still we want to minimize the gap if that exists. So at this point right here, the car was very slow, so having more brake would mean that the car will be even slower. So we can't go on brake, but we can't go on throttle either because the car hasn't properly rotated. So the fix for this is to carry a bit more speed at the apex. We overslow the car a bit too much, and then at this part we have to wait. So the car is basically understeering. We're not at the limit. So to fix it, you can still keep the same braking point, but brake just a bit lighter or do the brake release a bit more quickly. We kept the 100% a bit too much. That's what happened here. The apex could have been a bit more to the inside, so you can cut a bit more at this part. But in general, the idea will be to reduce that gap in your input. Going now into the next corner, this is a difficult one. This is different because now we're going downhill braking. The first downhill braking zone, and again we're not using all the track here. We have a lot more space on entry, which will make the corner a lot easier. Let's see the approach. So again, a big gap and understeering on the exit. So the first thing that we notice is that we started to drift off towards the corner way sooner. So the car at this point is pointing straight, but now it starts to drift off to the right. Just a bit. And now you're committing to the corner. You want to turn later for this corner. You want to keep going forward just a few meters more. So at this point, you should still be going forward, still forward a bit, and then at this point initiating the turn, because you want to take a later apex into the corner. You apex very early here, which resulted in a very wide exit at this point. So turning a bit later, and while turning, you should aim to get this curb right here. You should try to hook the right tire on this curb so that you can rotate it a bit more with the curb itself. Now, in terms of inputs, I think this braking point was a bit too late. Brake just a bit earlier around here, you can start applying the brake, so slightly before the 100, because then you can control more the balance of the car going into this corner. And also, usually, whenever you're turning from this angle in Red Bull Ring, especially with the F1 car, I struggled with F1 a lot. The inside tire, the inside right, will tend to lock up in this corner, and you really want to avoid having the trail brake here. So you can trail brake into the lower 5%, but if you're trail braking into the lower 20%, so 15, 20, something like that, this tire will overheat and the car won't turn as efficiently as it could turn. So braking less into this corner, but the only way to brake less is to brake a bit earlier. Brake a bit earlier, so here you won't be needed to trail brake into these percentages. Hook this car up on the curb and turn a bit later while going at it. Now the flow of the track changes. The track usage here is okay. Let's see the apex. This was very early, and look on the throttle. So we maintain the throttle, as you see here in this shape, way too much. So what happened here is that we took an earlier apex around beginning of the curb, and then when you go back on throttle, you can't put the power down, almost mash it to 100%. You have to modulate it, and every time you have to do a longer modulation under throttle, you're generally losing time. So it's more efficient to apex later and put the 100% throttle earlier than being a bit earlier under throttle but holding it to 20%, slowly building it up. This is gonna lose you a lot of time with almost any car. So instead of this, just apex a bit later, turn a bit later, and the moment that you put the power down, you stay on that percentage. Because otherwise we will just understeer like you did here. So it's not terrible, but it's those small details that will make a difference over the lap. Because this concept, you can apply it almost everywhere while building up the throttle. But basically what I'm saying is that you're going fast in, slow out. You have to prepare a bit more the entry so that you will have a very, very good exit. In this corner here, the turning point is okay, so we're using all the track, but it's very early here. I would turn the car, I would initiate the turning at the end of this part here. And again, a lot of modulation under throttle. So it's a bit harder to see because of the positioning, but what's happening here is that you go on throttle, you give it a blimp of throttle, then you have a gap and then you go back on throttle. Try to blend the inputs here especially. So what you can do in this corner and what will probably work for you is brake a bit later. So go a bit more forward, brake a bit later but harder to make the car rotate. And then whenever you're apexing, you apex a bit more closer here, so a bit later on the apex, and you will be able to stay on power. That's going to be key to gain in this part. And notice that you're not using all the track here, so you could have carried a bit more speed. That's because of the modulation under throttle. The final sector, these corners are quite nice. Using all the track, very good usage of the track here. This was probably one of your best entry so far. Applying the brakes, getting this curb, all good. But at this point, we're landing here. And we're not using all the track. It's crazy, but in Red Bull Ring, you can put your antenna at the beginning of the red and still won't be on off track. So because you probably didn't know that, you didn't push the throttle that much, because right now you're hitting the curb, everything is fine here, everything was perfect, but then you're modulating the throttle because you felt probably that you will push the car way too wide. No, you can actually put the car at the beginning of the red with the antenna and everything will be fine. So instead of doing that modulation under throttle, just smash it more confidently so that the car will track out a bit wider, and then this will give you a very good corner into the next one, into here. So bring the car all the way to the red in this part, and right now let's see it braking and the gap. And the thing with this corner, but it was very difficult for you because you had a shallow line, because you didn't use all the track. This is a compression here, so your line was good, but again a bit of an earlier apex, just because that you didn't have the proper radius. You want to apex a bit later into this corner, and the moment that you feel the suspension that's compressing because of this compression zone, then you put the power down immediately. So at this point you should be already back on throttle, but in your case here you have a gap and here you're on throttle, which is way too late because of this big straight. So I would say you can work a lot on using more track, especially in the last sector. I think here you lost half a second in these corners, starting from here. You can gain that time by just using all the track here, use more throttle. So here it's 2/10, and in this one, by being here on throttle, this is gonna be probably another 2/10 and 1/10 from the corner behind. So I think half a second you can squeeze just by using all the track, and in general doing less corrections under throttle, because you have this tendency of slowly building up the throttle. So you're connecting the brake and the throttle shapes in some corners, but when you do it in a way that it takes you a lot of time to build up the throttle. So instead you want to maybe brake a bit later, rotate the car more under braking because of the weight transfer, and then whenever you put the power down, it's more like a straight line going up. But in short, that's the lap review. Good lap, overall a good lap. You can improve it a lot, but by just doing simple things. So let me know if this helped. I hope this helped a lot more people, and I'll see you in the next community lap analysis. You can send me your lap on my Discord, and I plan to do one per week, maybe two. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one. Bye bye.